So I want to start with a look at the macroeconomic issues in India. The perception about India is that the GDP growth has been at 6.2%, which happened to be the highest in the world. And then the inflation rate seemed to be fairly low at something like 4.7%. And the fiscal deficit is narrowing. And then, we also talk about India occupying the fourth position in the as highest with highest GDP in the world. And then everybody, including the IMF, says that we have robust fundamentals. And then we also planning to sort of become a Vishwaguru, on probably it translates into a superpower. And also we are sort of planning to sort of become a developed country by 2047. That is, just about in a 25 years period. So on the top of our population, on top of it, the population is also growing slow. And so we have shortages of labor, so which actually should mean that the wages should go up. And there are peak season agricultural manual labor shortages. And now everything seems to be rosy. And the question is, why are we worried about it today, despite all the good things that are supposed to be happening? See, there are a couple of reasons why it is happening. The most important one is that, next slide, please. So the most important one is that we have come to a new normal where everything seemed to be changing in the world. So there is a recession, and then everybody is losing jobs all over the world. And then there is also, we have a large number of other problems which are related to trade, and then acquiring technology for development. And a large number of other bad things are happening in the world for us in India. And then at the same time, in fact, we have to live with all these odd situations and still develop. So what is it that went wrong with India? It only shows that it is sort of possible to have a good, robust economic indicators on one hand, and on the other hand, it is possible to sort of have a jobless growth and distress situation. So first, the government has put hopes on CapEx, that is capital expenditure, thinking that the infrastructure development will in fact bring more growth. And if the infrastructure is supposed to bring a lot of growth, and then, it's supposed to help people to get jobs. That didn't happen. Why didn't it happen? It's because all the infrastructure projects are yield only in the long run. I mean, they're not effective in the short run. That's number one. Number two is that all these infrastructure projects, in fact, have been returning a much lower returns. That is, capital output ratio, in fact, is increasing so much that then the returns on the capital investment is much lower. So it will never give you the type of return that you want to have. And so the capital expenditure increases did not help India at all. That's one thing. And the other thing is that there are a number of problems which we are facing. One of them happened to be declining wages, which have already everybody spoke about it. And then the next important thing is about the unemployment. What is happening actually in the country is that ever since 2018-19, there has been a sort of decline and in the growth rate. The growth rate has fallen because we did not really bother about any of these problems. And then happily, the government said that, there's nothing wrong in it. So the macro situation is very good. And that's what inflation has been controlled. And so everything should be right. But then the country is having only a jobless growth. and the actual incomes, real incomes have fallen. I mean, we have already seen that. And then they refuse to recognize the distress in the informal economy. The informal economy particularly lost its capacity to absorb more labor. That is very clear in one of those statistics that I've given. There is a productivity report which has been produced in the recent years, which of course goes only up to 2018. But at the same time, by then already the absorptive capacity of the small scale sector has fallen, and then probably it must have been fallen much more now. And even if the inflation rate is supposed to be very low, continuously, if you have even an average 6.18% of compound interest inflation over a period of time, over 6 years, about 44% of your real worth is gone. And so you have a lot of problems. And all these problems are compounded by another important aspect, that is unemployment. We are saying that the country is doing very well. Our unemployment is only 3.2% in the rural and 4.9% in the urban areas. But then we have completely misrepresented the unemployment situation by using a sort of statistics, which is not correct to use. Anywhere in the world, unemployment means if a person is without any earning whatsoever, he is considered as unemployed. But as far as India is concerned, the usual status unemployment means that even if he works for a few days in the entire year, he's considered as employed. The long periods of unemployment of his is completely ignored. And on the other hand, a large number of people, particularly women and others also, who are working in the family, who are helping the family enterprise, are considered as workers, even though they're not earning a pie. And so the very fact that we have not looked into the data and then corrected the type of statistics that we need to correct the unemployment situation has not been done. And again, if you look at the NSS data, we also see that 85% of the rural population and 55% of the urban population get less than 6,000. And of course, everybody talked about the falling rural wages, and also urban wages have increased, but they've increased very little. So on the whole, there's a decline in the wages, actual decline, and even in nominal terms, sometimes, particularly in the rural areas. And in general, there has been a sort of a fall in the real wages. So obviously, there is a distress situation, and nothing much is happening there. And as far as the agriculture is concerned, even though there are hardly any jobs which are being created there, they're talking about some schemes and giving some freebies to transferring some money to the cultivators and others, which is not of much use, for the simple reason that the cost of production of, say, for example, 1 hectare of rice is more than 1 lakh. Probably it goes up to even 1,20,000 to 40,000. And even for wheat, the cost of production is something like about 70,000 rupees or so. And then the amount of money that has been given per farmer is in fact is minuscule. It'll only reduce his losses and nowhere to sort of regenerate the economy, and particularly the agricultural economy as such. So there's a big problem. And while we have the potential to make agriculture a driver of economic growth, nothing has been done. The investment has been coming down over a period of time. There's hardly any investment in the agricultural sector. And what all is happening is giving a few freebies. Now, this year, they're talking about giving more loans, and also they're talking about making seeds available and all that, and also talking about the aspirational districts. Exactly, aspirational district program, which in fact Nirmala Sitharaman particularly said has been successful. But then, if that had been successful, agriculture would have really prospered. If you go back to see during the heydays of agriculture, that is the 1980s, when really the Green Revolution period, when the labor absorption increased and the actual real wages went up, and then we had produced enough, and there was there wasn't as much distress as there is today. There was a IIDP program, that is Integrated Area Development Program, which has been put in place by Professor Swaminathan, and that really worked. And what did they do? The government has spent a lot of money on research and development, and there's a huge amount of support by way of extension workers actually going to the fields and helping the farmers. Today, the farmers depend only on the dealer who sells the seed which are produced by Cargill and say Monsanto, and then all the technical advice is taken from them. In such a situation, even if you distribute seeds, nothing is going to happen. And then that is, and all those programs that have been mentioned in the budget are not of much use to agriculture as such. And then the next section of population, which happened to be suffering, seemed to be the non-farm workers and also the urban non-farm workers. And most of them are particularly in what is called the MSME sector. So when we talk about MSME sector, the first M is micro, second S is small, and the next is the medium enterprises. So the micro sector hardly has any potential to employ people, because most of them are self-employed and most of them are, in fact, eking out a living. And then the small sector is slightly better, but not capable of really improving employment. So the only sector which has got a potential of absorbing more labor happens to be the medium enterprises. And if you look at the composition of the SMSCs, we find that about 97.7% happen to be in the small enterprises sector, which really cannot, help employment. And the second one happens to be, I won't take very long. The second one happens to be the small sector with only 1.8%, and then the medium-sized enterprises that have employment potential are only as small as 0.8%. And probably these people also have a potential to develop. So this particular slide shows from 2008 to 17, unorganized sector employment growth has been negative. And the organized sector, in fact, grew up to 2007. So something like 2000, some mid-90s to 2003 happened to be the heyday of Indian economic growth. And then the heyday of agriculture happens to be sometime in 80s. And afterwards, by 2008-17 itself, there has been a negative absorption of labor in the unorganized sector. And particularly the total manufacturing sector, which is supposed to be the backbone of India and supposed to be the driver of growth, in fact, has no absorption capacity unless the medium industries, in fact, have been given some help and to really absorb some labor. But then there is a lot of problem as far as the medium enterprises are concerned, because these medium enterprises are something which have something like 50 crores to say 100 crores, or maybe they have increased it recently. But at the same time, they have, like there's a lot of opportunities are there. They cannot survive because the governance depends on in the hands of the state. So for everything, the moment you are an entrepreneur, you right from the starting from registration to acquiring land and acquiring a water connection, acquiring an electrical connection, and then getting a number for GST. All these things are, require giving huge amount of bribes. So after paying all these bribes, the cost of production goes up so high, and then the profits that these people get will be very low. And then in such situations, there's no way that the medium-sized enterprises can survive, and that's the very reason why we have what is called the missing middle. So the others are of no use.
Yeah, can we just round up, ma'am, if you don't mind?
I'm not taking very long. No, I haven't. Please, I won't take very long. I'm just
sure. Yeah.
You want me to proceed? Do you want me to
Yeah,
proceed?
go ahead.
Shall I proceed?
Yeah. Since you're coming to the budget now, it may be useful. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
So, whatever relief that has been given to the MSMEs is not enough. And then there's just last point which I want to make. That's about the relief given to the middle classes. And the middle classes, of course, to whom the relief applies, probably constitute about 20 to 20% of the urban areas, because everybody, according to the latest NSS survey of 22-23, happened to be below that of the middle class level income and below the income tax levels as far as the rural areas are concerned. And so only in the urban areas, a few, 25% of them fall into this category. But now the question is, can they be drivers of economic growth? The question is, what will they do with the additional income that they have? Most of them are also threatened with job losses. Let's not forget that. Even the middle class is threatened with the job losses, particularly with AI and the slowing down of the economy and all that. And so they may spend the money to hedge in gold and silver. They can also may buy electronics. All of them happen to be imported goods, which are not going to help the Indian economy anymore. And so we have to see where the money goes. And maybe there will be some amount of growth. We can't say no, because a part of the consumption, in fact, goes to the Indian goods. And so there may be a higher level of consumption, which may sort of increase our output and adds to the growth. It may add to the growth, there's no doubt about it, but does not mean that it will lead to the absorption of labor. It will still be a growth without jobs. So that can very much happen. And then just last point, which I want to make, is that the problem is there is a lot of potential in agriculture, and particularly to create jobs, not only in the rural areas, but also in the urban areas. But then absolutely there is no investment at all. In fact, the data clearly shows that urban doesn't mean there is no distinction between urban rural, but the urban rural distinction is not equivalent to agricultural non-agricultural distinction, because a large number of semi urban areas have got a lot of people who own land in the nearby villages. And so there is an incentive. There are people who are eager to invest, but at the same time, government has not done anything. And particularly the NREGA program has been really dumped. And that, of course, is very sad. Under these circumstances, it's rather difficult for India to become a sort of a superpower, or even to sort of provide sufficient number of jobs to the particularly the distressed sections of the population. That's in the rural sector and also in the urban sector, where most of them happen to be.